Uh, Pretty much assembled everyone here this morning in light of last night's incidents. First of all, the Durham Police Department understanding the holiday, understanding the sorrow that the Huertas family is going through at this point in time. We understood their desire to have a visual last night, and we wanted to assist them with it at the extent that it be a safe situation for them and that they could have their visual. In light of all that, we reached out to the family, reached out to the coordinators, and really had no resolve with that. They did not respond to us in hopes of being able to put together a safe demonstration. Last night, the demonstration did occur, the visual did occur. They did walk, a large group walk from City Hall Plaza down to the back of police headquarters, where they lit up various candles and placed some flowers at the back end of the parking lot. That group, after being asked to disperse, did disperse and return back to the plaza. The dispersal request was made when they started to trespass onto the property and move on to the police parking lot. They then returned back to the plaza, during which time at the plaza, some vandalism began to occur. We had rocks and bottles thrown at police officers, and they were again asked to disperse. Using best law enforcement practices, the police department was able to disperse the crowd and minimize any injuries and any damage to property. Now, understanding, of course, that as we watched this group gather and come to headquarters, we did notice that there were quite a few individuals there who were wearing masks, who were carrying backpacks. Also, while they walked past the railroad tracks, they gathered rocks and were walking with rocks towards headquarters. So we knew that there were individuals within that group that did not have a peaceful intent. But nevertheless, we were able to ensure as peaceful as possible a demonstration for the family, and we were able to properly address the individuals who came with the negative intent. Now, as I have you here, I'd also like to take this moment to update you on the investigation that the SBI has in response to the death of Jesus Huerta. The state lab has informed us that after conducting a gunshot residue test on both the hands of Jesus Huertas and also Officer Samuel Duncan, they found that first, Mr. Huertas was wearing gloves, and that his gloves had a saturation of gunshot residue on it to indicate that the individual may have fired a handgun or a firearm. Officer Duncan's test revealed that he had no gunshot residue on his hands. So that's the latest that we've been able to get in reference to that investigation in order to keep you updated. I have to also say that last night, in light of everything that was going on, I'm sure many of you saw the videos, the raw video of the event, and you saw the amount of abuse and also the dangers the officers were in with the projectiles and the bottles being tossed at them, that they used a whole lot of restraint in addressing that situation and used their training experience in order to bring it to a positive conclusion. As such, I also want to mention that these officers have really been working hard in light of everything that's going on to address a lot of the issues that are occurring here in the city, to include the rash of homicides that we have been subjected to here in the city at this point in time. This week alone, we, as you know, had a double homicide on Cheek Road. Within 48 hours, an identified suspect was apprehended in South Carolina, and we realized that that in itself was a domestic violence situation, and we're continuing to work with all the other homicides that we have here within the city, continue to deal with them in light of it. Okay. Quickly, I'll open up.
An email from the Families Durham Community Organization saying that they basically are claiming that your officers attacked them last night without cause, and they're basically accusing the police department of brutality, police brutality during that what was supposed to be a peaceful march. Your response to that?
It was supposed to be a peaceful march, but every indication that we had was that the individuals who were coming out to that march did not have a peaceful intent. We have some material here that clearly was handed out to participants at the protest. These materials are indicative of individuals who are planning and who are teaching others to engage in destructive, aggressive, and assaulting manner. So there was a march. The peaceful intent did not exist prior to and did not exist at that point in time when you start to look at the individuals that were there and also the message that they were sending.
The family said that you guys were careless around children because there were little children present, and I want to get your response from that when you guys used the tear gas.
At this point in time, I have to say that we use the best practices in law enforcement in order to take the crime out, to take the violence, and also to ensure the safety of everyone, to ensure also the safety of those children, because I'll tell you, while those rocks were in the air, while those bottles were in the air, those children were in more risk than anything that we did last night in reference to it.
Thanks. Chief, in the statement issued last night, you how it could have been worse last night. But do you feel like the mounted police presence, the amount of people you had out there, that exacerbated the problem, knowing that these people are already very angry with the department, seeing the police in riot gear immediately, do you think that set them off a bit?
They did not see the police in riot gear immediately. The police came out when individuals needed to be moved with the proper gear to ensure their safety. So that was not out there in the beginning as it's being stated. Also, our presence, I think, really ensured the safety of the individuals who were there for a positive purpose and for the purpose of Jesus Huertas. And I also have to mention that the majority of the people who were there, I believe, were not part of the family of Jesus Huertas. We're there with, pre-designated intent to cause harm, to cause damage.
Chief, I have two questions. One, I want to know how many warnings were actually given to the protesters, and also if you can speak to the fact that you just said you had seen, or your officers had seen protesters with masks and book bags. Why not target those individuals instead of going for a mass approach where tear gas would be thrown?
The first question is, I'm not sure exactly how many warnings. I think we had 2 incidents, one out back where we gave a 10-minute warning, and also we gave reminders as the clock ticked down, giving them 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, so it did not come, our actions did not come as a surprise. Yep. We also did that at the downtown plaza. We gave the warnings, and then the second question is?
Is, given that you just said you guys had seen some of the protesters with book bags and rocks and masks and all that, if you had identified some of the protesters who were the problem, as you would probably agree, why not target them and arrest them versus throw tear gas to the group in general?
Well, at that point in time, what we were trying to do was disperse the group. When you start talking about a large amount of people that were out there physically doing it, and we start breaking up the police force in order to go into these crowds, it's a very dangerous situation for police officers, because understanding that even though I may see one person with a mask on, one person throwing a rock, the 5 to 10 people around them are not going to be very friendly to a police officer coming in to arrest them. And in these cases, and as we've seen in the past, these individuals pretty much train for that. They train to lure the police officer into the crowd and place them in a very dangerous situation. And I'm pretty certain that as reporters, you're all aware of that also, because I know that you all train to deal with these same individuals because they're not very friendly to you when you encounter them in these mass riots.
I also, I have 2 questions real quick. How many people were arrested? And could you speak about the toll this is taking on police resources? Because it looked like you had the entire department out there last night. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's it.
Well, let's see, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. We had a total of 6 arrested last night. And
How
as
many
far-
charges to?
Well, that's listed in the news release. You can get that afterwards instead
Okay.
of me.
Cool.
But your answer as far as the toll on the police department, quite frankly, it's a toll on the city. It's a toll on the resources that the taxpayers of the city of Durham are paying for. They're the ones who pay to fix the damage that occurs when these incidents occur. So I would say it's not really the toll of the police department. We are trained, we're ready to deal with and address these issues. But at the same point in time, the toll, I think, is to the citizen of Durham that has to endure this on a regular basis.
Just a quick question. We talked about rocks and bottles. And I know we're talking about two different sites. Is there any way to quantify how many rocks and bottles and also throw out firecrackers? I'd heard that kind of thrown out there as well.
Tell you how many rocks were thrown? Okay, what I would have to say is to look at the video and start counting. That would be the only way. I don't know how many firecrackers were thrown out. They have been. I don't know if they were thrown out last night. That is part of the practice. Sir, up front. Radio?
I was hoping you could address the issue of causation. One of the organizers, who was a person that the police department tried to contact before last night's vigil, and the department said was unresponsive, said this morning that everything was peaceful, but really it was when the department acted first in an aggressive manner that some people became violent.
Well, I would hope that that individual you're talking about, that when we call him, that he speaks to us. I don't have a problem discussing it with him. I think that if he had cooperated with this police department, it may have gone a lot better for him and for the demonstration.
So if we're to understand this correctly, you're saying the Huerta family wasn't the problem last night. It was more what, the professional protesters that were out there?
What I'm saying is that we had a group of individuals that came out. We had tried to work with the family and also work with the coordinators in order to try to work out a peaceful means in order to have this protest. That did not happen. The group itself, I cannot identify who is who at this point in time from this podium, engaged in activity that caused us to have to disperse them.
Because the Huerta family's attorney this morning sent out a release saying that they're accusing of police brutality. You respond to that?
He's able to say whatever he wants. He's not held accountable for his words. I'm accountable for my words. And if anybody does believe that there was actual police brutality against him, they should file a complaint. We will investigate it.
Chief, were any of your officers injured? And were any of the protesters injured?
We had one protester that apparently during the arrest wound up getting a scrape. And as far as officers are concerned, we had many that came very close to being injured, to include a baseball-sized rock that hit one of their face shields. But outside of that, we don't have any injuries by officers.
And because you just mentioned anyone who wants to file a complaint can do so, I don't want to assume, but I overheard the officer up front taking calls. I'm going to assume about the protest. How many complaints have you received?
I don't have that number with me at this point in time.
Chief, so given that it's one more question, I'm going to have to wrap a couple of things into this. And this is pertaining particularly to Jesus Huerta wearing gloves when he was in police custody. So can you say what kind of gloves he was wearing, why he was still wearing gloves after he was taken into custody, and if they were gloves because presumably maybe it was cold that night, why would he have been? The temperature roughly at the time that he was arrested was 42 degrees.
I can't speak to what he was thinking and why he was wearing the apparel he was wearing, but normally when we arrest someone, we don't necessarily take off their apparel unless their apparel presents itself to be danger.